Canelo versus Crawford, the fight of the century. Nobody, and I mean nobody, can predict this one with any sort of certainty. There are three key factors that are going to determine the outcome of this fight. We're going to be looking at the weight jump, the tactics, even the question of motivation. This isn't just about belts, it's about legacy. It's about who walks out of Sin City as the pound for pound king of boxing. I'm Charlotte Daly, and this is your Big Fight Focus. Canelo versus Crawford, this is the big one, guys. Forget Beterbiev versus Bivol, forget Usyk versus Fury. This is the fight we've all been waiting for. September the 13th, it is happening in Las Vegas. But we got to get into it. How did this even come to fruition? This is how the rivalry began. So it all started in 2023, right after Crawford dominated Errol Spence Jr. to become the undisputed welterweight champion. Now, Crawford kind of shocked the fans a little bit by throwing out the idea of fighting Canelo. He was saying maybe they could fight at a catch weight of 158, 160, but Canelo shut that down pretty quickly, and I don't blame him, to be honest. He said that the size difference was just way too much, and he did have a point, to be fair. But thankfully for the fans, Crawford wouldn't let it go. He just kept pressing about this fight. He was like a dog with a bone. And before long, he was talking about moving all the way up to super middleweight, no more catch weight. He was going to jump 2 full divisions just to make this fight happen. And that's when fans started to pay attention. That's when it was no longer a pipe dream. It felt like this could be possible. It felt like a fight that we may actually get. And then Saudi Arabia got involved. We know what happens when they get involved. Big things happen. Turki Al-Sheikh, the man behind it all, he's been putting on mega fights like that Beterbiev Bivol, like that Usyk Fury. He decided that he wanted to bring this one to life. And look what's happened. There was one hiccup though. In early 2025, reports stated that Canelo was actually going to fight Jake Paul. Jake Paul himself was even hyping it up, saying that they were close to signing a deal and that the fight was going to happen. But in the end, Canelo decided to ditch that, and he signed a mega fight deal with Riyadh Season, and it included that fight with Crawford. It was on the list, it was happening, it was on paper, but we couldn't get too excited because we've seen things like this fall through. The moment that it really felt real, though, was after Canelo beat William Skull in Saudi Arabia. Now, it wasn't a vintage performance from Canelo. It was a bit touch and go. I mean, Crawford was ringside. I was stood next to him when the result was being read out, and even he looked nervous because he was thinking, oh my God, it's going to be an AJ Wilder situation where the fight was on and then something goes wrong. But thankfully, Canelo got the win. Crawford stepped into the ring. They had their first face-off. It was official. It was happening. September was the day, Las Vegas was the location. It was originally scheduled for September the 12th. They then moved it to September the 13th. It was all good. That's how it happened. We've got Canelo trying to take down the smaller guy. We've got Crawford chasing greatness. We've got a lot of money making it happen, and we've got a fight for the fans, something that we can look forward to, something that will define this era of boxing. 2 things before I move on. I was obviously there that night when Canelo beat William Skull, and he really just coasted through the fight. As we know, it was like the least punches thrown. It wasn't very exciting. We knew he was going to win it. But the mood just shifted as soon as Crawford got into the ring. The way that they looked at each other, the way that they were sizing each other up, feeling each other out, the atmosphere was intense. But the thing that almost surprised me the most was actually the look in Crawford's eye. He had seen something in the ring with Canelo that he just knew that he was able to do this. Everyone talks about the weight difference and the size difference and everything like that, but there was just something with Crawford that there was just a confidence that you can't explain unless you were there and you saw him. Okay, let's compare both fighters. When comparing Canelo and Crawford, you've got to start by looking at their resumes. These are 2 of the most decorated fighters in their era, but in 2 very different ways. Let's start with Saul Canelo Alvarez. He's Mexico's golden boy from Guadalajara. He's been boxing professionally since he was 15. Dread to think what I was doing at 15, but over that time he's conquered 4 different weight divisions and picked up titles in all of them. And if that wasn't showing off enough when it comes to super middleweight, he thought, why not go one step further? Unified all the belts and became undisputed champion. It sounds impressive, and that's because it is. That kind of dominance across so many weight classes is why he's been a permanent fixture on the pound for pound lists for well over a decade, to be honest. It's not only that though, he's also shared the ring with a wider array of opponents over a longer professional career than Crawford. We're talking big punchers, technicians, future Hall of Famers, and for the most part, he's come out on top against them all. Okay, sure, there are blemishes on his career. Floyd Mayweather outclassed him when he was still green, and Dimitri Bivol was simply too big and too sharp at 175. But those losses don't define his career or what he's achieved or what he stands for. What defines his career is the sheer volume of elite fighters that he's fighting, and also the fact he's just such a global superstar. I mean, his pay-per-view sales are just off the record. It's ridiculous. And if you've ever been to a Canelo fight, you can just see the amount of people that turn up to watch him. I remember being in Las Vegas for the Charlo fight, and I was stood at the barriers for the weigh-in, and we were waiting for doors to open for all of the fans to come in. And I kid you not, once those doors opened, people were sprinting to get front row, elbows out, fighting each other. People wanted to get as close to Canelo as possible. I've honestly never seen anything like it. And we all know that the weigh-in is the most boring part of fight week anyway, but they were that excited to be there for it. Now, Crawford's path may look a little bit different, but it's no less impressive than Canelo. He's the first male fighter of the four-belt era to become undisputed in not just one, but two separate divisions. That's not just rare, that's history-making. Also, then there's that small, tiny, insignificant fact that he's unbeaten. Yes, undefeated record, and he has a higher knockout percentage than Canelo. It's not bad, is it? He hasn't just picked up belts, it's the way that he's dismantled his opponents, the way that he's able to beat these champions, you know, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, and of course that absolute masterclass against Errol Spence Jr., where he dropped him 3 times on the way to a 9th round stoppage. That was a statement. That was the Crawford we're talking about. What sets Crawford apart isn't just his wins, it's how he wins. He's not just beating these guys, he's breaking them down. He's showing that switch he has to be able to end a fight when he starts to smell blood. That's why he's been named Fighter of the Year so many times, why people call him one of the most complete boxers in the sport today. Okay, that's all well and good, but how do we weigh these resumes up against each other? Obviously, Canelo's is broader, more divisions, more marquee names, and the longevity of being a superstar for over a decade. Then you've got Crawford, who's, you know, sharper, if you want to say that, undefeated, he's ruthless, and he's historically unique by being undisputed in 2 different weight classes. Canelo's legacy screams global superstar when Crawford screams perfection. And that's what makes this matchup so compelling. It's not just champion versus champion. We've seen that, we've had that, we're gonna continue to get that. But it's the 2 very different roads that they've taken to get to greatness, and now they're going to collide in one ring. But the big question on everybody's lips is, why fight? Why would Canelo Alvarez risk it all when he's already the face of boxing? Especially against a smaller man, what's the perk? And then why would Terence Crawford jump up 2 divisions to take on one of the most dangerous champions in the sport? Okay, so I thought about this, and for Canelo, it's got to be about legacy. He's already undisputed at super middleweight. He's already cemented himself as one of Mexico's greatest, probably is Mexico's greatest. But defending that crown against a fighter like Crawford, a pound for pound master, carries massive weight, and it's something that he will want to add to that resume. If he wins, it reinforces everything we already know about him. He's the king at 168, the guy who welcomes challenges, or at least used to welcome every challenge from anywhere and everyone. It brings back that authority to his name. But if he loses against a naturally smaller guy, that would be seen as a huge dent in his resume, more than a loss to Dimitri Bivol or more than a loss to Floyd Mayweather. It would be bad for him. For Crawford, on the other hand, it's the kind of opportunity that fighters dream of. He's already made history. He's the first male boxer of the four-belt era to become undisputed in 2 different weight classes. But a victory over Canelo if he really pulls this off, if he gets it over the line, if he beats Canelo and becomes undisputed in 3 divisions, yeah, just let that sink in for a second. 3 divisions, that would put him in a whole different conversation. We're talking all-time greats. You're telling me that he wouldn't want to take that? Of course he would. Just look at his face when he was squaring off against Canelo in the ring. Of course he wants that. And it's not just the belts. You know, beating Canelo would be topping one of the sport's biggest superstars on the biggest stage impossible in Las Vegas. It's almost Canelo's home away from home. He loves fighting in Vegas. That is what will redefine and further Crawford's career. So back to the point, why fight? Because for both men, yes, it's a big whopping payday, of course, we all know that, but it's about legacy. For Canelo, it's about defending his throne and shutting down pound for pound debates. And for Crawford, it's about chasing immortality, the chance to do something that no one else has ever done and probably will never do again. And then obviously, yeah, there's the point about the massive big payday. That will be quite nice too. Right, that's enough pre-fight waffle. Let's get into the business end of this fight. Where is it going to be won and lost? Right, first up, let's talk about Canelo. He's the natural super middleweight here. He's comfortable at 168. He's even tested himself at light heavyweight. And he's been carrying that power against the best since 2019. That's got to be the biggest difference. Crawford is moving up 2 full divisions. Some people, like Mike Tyson for example, think that size and strength will be way too much for him. Canelo's style is built on front foot pressure. He marches forward behind that tight guard. He's trying to bait you into throwing so that then he can counter. But here's the thing, to keep that pressure going, he has to constantly keep stepping forward with that lead foot. And sometimes that's going to leave him off balance or even coming in slightly square. We've seen several fighters before looking to exploit this, and they've had a lot of success, to be honest, with it, and that's definitely something Crawford will look to do. Now, don't get me wrong, when he does trap you, that's when he's deadly. It's excellent. The way that he can mix his shots, he's throwing to the head, to the body, he's landing those single, heavy power shots. That can be dangerous, and that is something that obviously Crawford is going to have to look for. We saw Canelo mixing his shots up quite nicely against the likes of Ryder and Charlo, which, you know, opened up his backhand beautifully. Then, obviously, you have that shovel left hook to the body. Signature Canelo. It is just brilliant. The way that he disguises it so well, and when it lands, it's brutal. Go back, watch the tapes, and see the impact it has when it lands properly. Now Crawford. This is where it gets interesting. He's moving up 2 divisions, only said it about 100 times, but yes, he's bringing one of the sharpest boxing brains to the sport. Just think about what the likes of Usyk has done with bigger heavyweights, like AJ, Dubois, even Fury, with his IQ, his movement, his timing. He's been able to dismantle these guys, and Crawford could do something similar here. Against Sean Porter, he anticipated the rushes really well and he made him pay for it, and that's something that we'll see against Canelo, I would imagine. You know, he's also enjoyed a lot of success using that lead hand as a rangefinder, touching, probing, and then countering to the body. That adaptability, the way that he's able to do that in the ring, thinking on his feet, that's what makes him so dangerous. And then you've got that southpaw stance. Huge factor. It gives him space, it lets him control the distance, it makes that backhand a real weapon. We've seen Canelo get caught clean by a couple of southpaw left hands before. Billy Joe Saunders had success landing doubles when Canelo overcommitted downstairs. We've seen that there's an opportunity there. I mean, I'm not Crawford's coach, I'm sure he's looked at the footage, I'm sure he's seen it as well. But here's the key for Crawford. He can't just run. Yes, he needs to move laterally, he needs to pivot out, he needs to frustrate Canelo to get him overreaching, but there are going to be times where he's going to need to plant his feet and he's going to need to fire back. The balance is really important. He's got to strike that balance well. Crawford can't get backed up constantly. Even in his fight with Madrimov, he found himself being backed up every now and then. And when he did plant his feet, he got caught with the right hand a few times. That's something he's going to have to address against Canelo. That can't happen against Canelo. Canelo hits harder than Madrimov. Crawford has to be elusive. He will need to be on another level for this fight on September 13th. Okay, yeah, that's all well and good, but where does the fight swing? For Canelo, it's about cutting off the ring better than he did against Skull. Although that fight against Skull, it can't be viewed as evidence of a Canelo decline. He did what he needed to win, nothing more, nothing less. We'll leave it at that. If he traps Crawford, he can dig to the body, he can mix up his shots, he can break him down, but he can't afford to smother his own work, and he can't afford to drop his quality when the pace in the fight picks up. We saw a similar scenario against Dimitri Bivol when he lost that fight, that as the pace of the fight started to pick up, Canelo's quality did drop at points. So he needs to eliminate that, because that's something Crawford will look to recreate. For Bud, the blueprint is clear. Establish range, control the tempo, use lateral movement, and make Canelo work at a faster pace. He's got to frustrate Canelo into overreaching and then counter, and counter hard when the openings come. Look, if you're asking me, I think Crawford's ring IQ and his counter-punching gives him a real chance to shock the world. That size and strength from Canelo is a big hill to climb. Look, that's enough from me. That's how I see it. But what do you guys think? Does Canelo win because of his size on the day, or does Crawford's skill carry him to glory? I want to know your predictions, so drop them in the comments.